Get started with some of the housekeeping before we get to the introduction. So everyone that's here, thank you for being here. We do want to make sure that everyone understands that this is a webinar that will be recorded. So we might have this up, in a few weeks afterwards so that you can go back to the video, get some of the tips and tricks that we are talking about here. We do have the chat open. So if you guys want to network, go ahead and use the chat. Say where you're from, any projects that you're working on, drop your socials, drop your LinkedIn, anything that you want to go ahead and promote, go ahead and do that. We will not have Q&A for this session. If you have any questions, you can ask, go onto hard drive directly, ask those questions towards them, or you can also go to songtrust.com, submit your inquiries there. But also I invite everyone to go ahead and check out our resource center. We have most of the most commonly asked questions there. So thank you again, hard drive team, for joining. I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves first, and I'll go ahead and introduce myself, and we'll start our conversation.
Marvin, the way you launched into this shit, it didn't tell us that we were live.
I got through this real quick.
That was like, oh, we're starting. I love it. I'll start. I'm Mickey Shiloh, CEO, founder of Hard Drive. I'm a singer, songwriter, entrepreneur. I've been in the business for 20 years almost, which is insane because I'm still 12. But I've worked with everyone from Pitbull to Diplo, Iggy Azalea, Jesse McCartney. We're stuck in 2009 with it, but my main focus these days is building my company and just helping independent artists and songwriters and producers learn the business. And yeah, that's me. Tommy, you're on mute again, by the way. But first, you want to go?
Sorry.
You're good.
Sure. I'm Roahn. Some of y'all know me as First. Some of y'all know me as from my government. I'm a songwriter, producer, composer. I work tree job them. And I have had a long career in various aspects of the business. I started out my career as an engineer, actually. And then from there, worked as a producer for many years, most notably on Nicki Minaj, Super Bass, and some others, Ariana Grande, a lot of records. And then from there, I transitioned into composing for TV and movies, which is different than sync. But I work mainly now in television as well. I do a couple shows. Some that y'all may know would be Bel Air. Wrote the theme for Power, this Power series, Saturday Night Live 50. Lots of other things, and currently producing a couple of shows myself. Love to be here. I'm thankful for my friends and family who invite me to talk about random experiences from the 2000s. So,
Right.
excited to have a great conversation.
Go ahead, brother.
Okay. Tommy, who you are.
All right. Hello. I'm Tommy Parker. I'm a producer, singer, songwriter. I've been doing this for a very long time. Like, I started around the same time Michaela did, when we were young with Dark Child, and I was blessed to work with a lot of great artists, and I'm very happy to be here and to talk about publishing.
Okay. Tommy has worked with everyone under the sun. He is the most humble person on earth. I like to call him like a walking jukebox also, and I've always said that. Yeah, he's worked with everyone from Drake to Backstreet Boys, Alicia Keys, Doja Cat, Future, Sierra, like, I don't know, almost everyone on the planet. Have you worked with Rihanna yet? I feel like Rihanna's the only one.
I mean, she's been retired for so long. It was like,
right.
who can work with Rihanna?
Yeah, I think that's the only person you've like not worked with yet. So,
Mariah Carey.
Yeah. Mariah Carey. You haven't worked with Mariah?
Nope.
Oh, wow. Tommy did though. Tommy Brown. Yeah. He's worked.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, there's more people. I mean, I would love to work with everybody, point blank. I think we all would love to work with everybody.
Yeah, facts. And these guys are my best friends for over 15 years, which is insane. Oh, yeah. I can't believe it. Wow.
Awesome. Thanks again for all three of you for being on this webinar. I'll introduce myself very quickly. So I'm Marvin Garcia. I'm the events and partnership specialist at Songtrust. As everyone has noticed, we have been working on a lot of in-person events. Everyone's switching off to doing stuff in events. This includes networking events, panels, music camps, and much more. So hopefully this year, we're in your city, or any of the cities that the audience here is in, to be able to help everyone connect, but also educate and be able to give folks the opportunity to use their skills and education or knowledge to be able to move forward in the music industry. So that being said, and Songtrust being a music publishing administrator, let's get into music publishing. So we can talk about the basics of music publishing. I'm pretty sure everyone here understands it. But I would like to kind of go into split sheets. So if you guys want, I can kind of go on a quick little run of publishing, and then we can kind of start digging into split sheets. And then we can also answer the questions that a few of the folks have made in the form that you guys sent out, they're very good questions, by the way. So we'll dive into those. So for music publishing, everybody knows these are the royalties that are generated for your works. This is for composition. So you can have production credit, you have songwriting credit. You'll be able to collect these royalties in the long run. Obviously, if you register them to the PRO, or if you have a publishing administrator. These could come from streaming sites. This can come from microsync. So if your songs are on specific socials that pay out for publishing, and this could also be mechanical royalties as well. And then we'll get into what is the gist of each and every one. We can talk a little bit more about splits, because I feel like that's what it's kind of like the highlighted theme of today, right? I want to say we can start out by just explaining splits real quickly, and then also giving a bit of experience each of you may have had in terms of splits in the studio, because I feel like your guys' experience is a lot different than possibly someone that's starting up right now. You guys have worked with a lot of people, so working with someone from a higher tier is definitely it's going to look different than working with, someone you are coming up with. I would want to say if Michaela wants to start off.
Sure. So splits and collaborations. I guess I like to start with how I learned about splits, period. Obviously you don't know what that is when you come into the industry. I remember the first time I asked about publishing at all was when I was bowling with Darkchild and his family before he signed me. I just remember them wanting to sign me to a publishing deal. I was 16 and we went bowling, and I sat next to him and I was like, what's publishing? It's like, I'm about to sign this deal. What the hell is this? And yeah, he explained, well, that's, you're writing the song, you're owed composition royalties, yada, yada. So long story short, I sign, and then we're in the studio, and I feel like, Tommy, correct me if I'm wrong, because I feel like you were around too, is like he kind of explained certain percentages for different parts of a song. I just remember him saying like a hook is 15 or 20%, a verse is 10 to 15, and like a bridge is 5%. And they're not rules. It was just kind of like these standard percentages that we came to use and know.
Definitely did that.
Huh?
He definitely did that.
Yeah,
Five a verse, 10 for chorus, and then extra 5 for bridge.
Yeah, like there were these kind of standard numbers that he taught
Right.
us. But yeah, I've stuck with those over the years, and like mostly people have come to understand the same percentages, if that makes sense. I haven't really ever had issues with like someone being like, nah, hook is 5. Nah, it's like closer to 10 to 20%. So
Yeah.
first, what about
I would agree. Like it's funny that you laid out those kind of guidelines, because that's the same kind of guidelines that had come my way. I know there's different modalities on how to do this though, because I know the Nashville ways equal splits. And what often happens in different genres of music is people have different ideas on how they want to come in. And as you get farther in your career, working with friends and frequent collaborators is very important, because if me, Tommy, and Mickey are in a room together, we know we're going to work again in five years. So we're not going to try and argue over 2.5%. Usually where the arguments come when you've worked with friends is the artist or an outside manager, or maybe an interesting situation where a manager, a publisher, or a record executive takes a percentage. And I think we're probably still on 101. We can get to 305 in a second. But I think those guidelines are fair ways to start. But we always know this is a business that is not, and there's no standards, right? So things kind of can move and shape depending on who gets the placement. I often think it's fair if somebody has a relationship with the artist that they lean heavier on a split when push comes to shove. But also working with people that you trust is very important when possible, because then you know the long run is better than the short term 5% that you may argue over who had an idea here or there.
Yeah.
Awesome. I have a quick question. Sorry, before we go a little bit further. So you said that before, obviously you started everyone started pretty much at a young age, right? Before that, was there any other place that you would say, okay, I can find music publishing information here? Because all I'm hearing right now at the moment is I had to have my mentor kind of guide me through the process and this and that. I know a lot of people don't have that, even to this day. There's a lot of information out there. What was it looking like back then for music publishing information?
This was pre-YouTube.
To be honest, I'm still learning to this day.
Me
I'm learning different parts about the equity. I'm learning different breakdowns of the percentages because I thought it was just based off of this percentage, but there's multiple percentages that things are based off of where you're getting paid from. And I just found that out a couple of years ago.
Yeah, there's stakeholders. I know for me, to answer your question directly, for me, Marvin, I read a book because I'm old and I'm a nerd. Things that
Back
have
to the basics.
that you can open up and look at with your eyes.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's so many music business books that I read. You know, Everything You Need to Know, obviously, that's the one that really helped me understand the how it is supposed to be. And I always have a saying, there's a way it's supposed to be, there's a way you think it is, and there's a way it really is in the middle. And you kind of learn by experiences. To Tommy's point, I'm still learning today. I serve on all kinds of boards and things, and there's things I don't know, and I'm learning every day because there's new stakeholders. And I think that shifts regularly.
Yeah, I would say I was reading for dummy books, literally, like eyes to the paper. I think a lot of us like to say that it's so much easier for everyone now because there's, YouTube and all these online resources, but honestly, that makes it harder because you don't really know who to trust. I will say Songtrust has the best resources I've seen online. That's not just a plug. I mean, I really do think that. I always go there to even learn new shit now. So I would just, again, reading is so important to really learn it. And then ask people that are in the game. Like you're here now, you're watching us talk about it. So Tommy, you were going to say something. I kind of cut you.
Go ahead, Tommy.
Yeah, because so like right now, like as a producer, as a collaborator, we collab with a lot of people. I'll sing on my loops and I'll do an old school loop and then I'll send it to a drummer. That drummer will send it to two other drummers. Now it'll be like my loop and four drummers, and then we have to split it. So a lot of the times we just try to be as fair as possible and just be like, let's just go all the way around the board. Let's just be equal, because you don't know who did what, because we are living in different countries and different states nowadays. So it's kind of hard sometimes. But then when you get executives that want to come in and take 10% when they don't do anything and make things a lot harder because there's already like 5 people on the track. So
can I say something really quick about that? When I was 15, I won't say the executive's name. It's like one of the biggest executives at Def Jam at the time. Anyway, I wrote something for the Pussycat Dolls, and he was like, yeah, so I'm going to get 20% publishing on this. And at the time, I was like, oh, that sounds fair. He sent me the beat. It's just like, what? You learn later that that's insane. 20% not even the publisher side. He wanted writer share. He wanted the whole canoodle. So yeah, it's good to learn this stuff because you won't even realize you're getting taken advantage of until so.
I see in the chat that somebody's asking, that book was called Everything You Need to Know About the Music Business by Donald Passman. Now, when I read that book, whoever's asking that, these stories weren't in that book.
Right.
Knowing how to navigate an executive trying to take a percentage, knowing how to navigate, you sent a loop to 5, to one person who sent it to 4 others, and one of those 4 others got the placement. And now they want an extra 10 because it's their relationship when you did most of the work on the loop. I think this is, the business has shifted because of the way that we get these placements and the way that we collaborate. We also weren't collaborating via Zoom and weren't collaborating in the same way when these books were written. So you got to kind of modernize it for your personal experience.
True.
Right. And that's funny that we're all kind of mentioning this, because the first question is, how do you properly fill out a split sheet? And again, we all have, even myself, we all have a different way of going about it. I would want to say like what would be the most common way aside from what you guys have already mentioned before, and then I'll go ahead and say what's a way that we've seen some of the folks in our camps go ahead and do it because they are starting off. They aren't working with such big artists.
I
Go ahead.
Well,
Go ahead.
for me, there is no split sheets. It's at the end because you don't know who's going to add who.
Right.
And then like right before or even after you get the placement when it's released, that's when the paperwork would come in like, okay, do you approve with this? This is all the people that's a part of it. It's like, oh, I didn't even know all these people were on this record too.
How long did it take you for you to get something like that? Because you're talking release, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes that could happen maybe a month, 2 months after, let's say the song is finished in the studio. Sometimes you see it a year after or two. Like what is an average that you see there?
It depends on the artist. You know,
Mm.
some artists are really up top of it. Some artists are not. And it's crazy. It's the bigger artists that will give you everything at the end.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The lower artists will like, let's do this now. Let's
Talk
get
about it
everything,
right now.
you know, let's be clear. But the bigger artist is like the day of, they're like, do you approve this? Like, okay,
Right.
well, what else can you do?
Yeah, I think a lot of times it's strategy, you know,
Yeah.
and then also as the creators, you know, sometimes we're in the room with the artist, sometimes we're not. And
Mhm.
at the end of the day, when the artist needs to go through their album, they're picking the final version of the song that's going to go on the album. There's like 20 versions that they have that we've never heard,
Right.
and finally to get it cleared, then they're sending you these split sheets. So you know, a lot of times these songs are out too. And I've seen many cases where one artist had a feature, had another artist feature, right? The main artist who got all the publishing and the splits right end up not putting that record on their album, but the artist who was featured put it on their album, right?
Mm.
And so then you're in a case where you have to sign off on a split sheet, but then the next artist ends up being the featured artist and they want to redo splits. And so it can be, you know, split sheets are kind of a touch and go thing because they need to be done. But in different situations, you know, you got to decide what's more important. You want this 5% or you want the record. Sometimes
Right.
you want that 5%. And sometimes you just want the record. And so you're signing off on splits that you should have maybe more percentage, but you know that that record is going to push you further along in your career. It takes a bit of instinct and having a good circle of trust to be able to know which is which.
Right.
Damn. Yeah, y'all dropped some real gems. That strategy is so important, and you don't learn that until you've like been in it for a while to kind of know how to maneuver. Like, do I want to go really hard to get this like extra 5%, or do I just take this because it's gonna like look good in my discography, right? I've been in a lot of scenarios like that where I've kind of just honestly sometimes let people walk all over me, I'll be honest. But on a side note, well, echoing Tommy, to be totally transparent with y'all, in my entire 20 years of this, I think physical paper to pen split sheet that I've ever signed is like probably less than, I don't know, 25, which sounds crazy because I've written like well over probably 2,000 songs in my
Really?
career. Yeah, like physically, I mean, I haven't signed like physically split sheets. Now we have e-sign and stuff, obviously. But when it comes to like my major placements, it's been kind of rare for me to even do an e-sign on it. It's usually the artist because I'm friends with the artist. They'll be like, hey, you getting 5. Hey, you getting 10. I'm like, okay.
Right.
This isn't really the way that business should be done. It's just been my experience as a songwriter that I haven't had management in over 10 years now. You guys, like Tommy has a management team. Tommy has always been signed, and that's a good thing because the business is always handled to a certain degree. And you can just focus on creative, which is why you also mentioned that you're now kind of, not now, but the past few years really learning the business too. And you didn't know, like, damn, there's different percentages of this shit I didn't even know existed. So yeah, there's so many different ways this could work. But for me, as someone that's mostly been independent and in charge of my own business, I could do better at being on top of it. Just that's me being transparent. So
I think the term, I mean, the best term to use here is being fluid, right? Reading the room. Because what we do in a lot of our camps is that we let everyone know, hey, we have someone here that can help you engage or negotiate in the percentages for your split at the end of the camp, right? That's something that is very rare. I would say that upfront. However, I want to be able to, or we want to be able to get all of our artists prepared to be able to negotiate, whether or not they're doing their splits at the end of the session or at a different time. Because if
Yeah.
you never negotiate, then you won't get your, your fair percentage. But that doesn't happen all the time. Like I said, reading the room, sometimes you'll be in rooms with much larger artists, and like you said, they'll give you a percentage, and you might say no to that, and the track might not come, might not be released. So it's kind of learning how to navigate whether or not you should ask for more, or you should, make sure you have someone on your side if you want to be able to grab a little bit more, or to be able to say, I know that I'm working with someone that's just going to give me this percentage. Am I okay with that? So it's good to see how you guys go about it, so everyone can understand, like, it's not going to be a set thing each and every time. You kind of have to read the room everywhere that you go for these kinds of things.
Yep.
That being said, how would you guys go about it when you're talking about splits with publishing, when there's more than, well, you guys kind of touched on this, but more than one person involved? And I want to go back to one of the things that you guys said. So if it is something that you're receiving the day before the release, what's the best plan of action, right? Because you can always say no, but what is the best kind of take on that based off of your guys' experience?
I have a rule, right? Like my rule is the things that I do today cannot prevent me from work tomorrow.
Mm,
And so I know all three of us, like we've been friends like literally over 15 years. We all have been in the business over 20. And I would say having longevity isn't just because you're good. We know people who are better than all of us who are probably, at Amazon or UPS right now. And I mean that respectfully. It's because they were very either difficult to work with, or
mm,
they made choices for one moment that prevented them from working in the future. And don't get me wrong, there's a couple of big records I would have at least another decimal point on a check had I argued what was fair to me. But however, I might not be scoring television shows right now because I'd have been out of the business.
Right.
And I think that, like again, like I said before, it's a question that you have to ask. You might not know the immediate answer, but you have to trust your gut. Is this worth me arguing to this level? Because we know there's levels to it, right? If it's 10, 12, 5, and you know you deserve your 15, but you're settle for 12, 5, and you end up getting 10 the day of the release, it's kind of like, hey, what's that 5%? But if you know you should get 50 and then they're giving you 5, I mean, you might
yeah.
need to,
Yeah.
argue a little bit stronger. And as the stakeholders become larger, and what I mean by that is if there's a larger artist, maybe they're not even signed, maybe they're the person who has access to more opportunities. And they're, delivering splits that you feel like are completely unfair. I think there's a way to advocate for yourself without getting run over. And I think that's in, relationships and learning how to be fluid, like you said, Marvin.
And I like what I think this is Summer Rona is saying in the chat. She's saying it's a balance of being generous and chill, yet also smart, and not let people push you around. So that was well said.
Yep.
Like,
Oh, my
Yeah.
bad for the dude who works at UPS. I wasn't trying to dish you, bro.
hey,
My bad.
sometimes you have to work. You have to work, right? Until until it becomes a full-time thing.
I hope you understand what I meant. My bad.
Shit, I need a job.
I think you were so right when you said you got to read the room.
Yeah.
You just got to read the room all the time. You got to be really careful, kind of walk on tiptoes because you want to work with these people again all the time. This is not the first time. So if you show you do good business, people always go back to good business, no matter what it is.
You will be exiled. It's a very, very small industry.
Yeah, work it around.
You will definitely be exiled for being difficult. And that's not to say let everyone walk all over you either. But yeah, there's a balance. It's an art for sure.
It's a way to be stern, and then there's a way to be like, okay, I'll let you have that, but I know for sure I'm going to send you some more stuff. We're going to get some more work going. This is not it. We're going to keep going with this.
Yeah.
Right. And I would want to kind of go into legal aspects of it, right? So when is it the right time to maybe grab a team or call a lawyer to be able to move forward with something like this? Because it's not necessary all the time, I would say, right?
No.
Yeah, man, the right time to me is when there's larger sums of money.
Mhm.
Yeah.
involved and large stakeholders. I always say that, like if it's a major label or if it's a major indie label or if it's a major brand, when it becomes major, and sometimes, you know, you can't see that a song that you did in your living room is going to be worth a couple $100,000. You can't see that, and that's okay, you know, to have negotiated a split lower than you wanted to and you regret it. It's like, man, that 5% now is, you know, some money. It's okay. But I would also say bringing in, reading the room, to both Tommy and Marvin, your point, sometimes reading the room is not bringing your attorney with the hatchet when you can have
Right.
a conversation. I've had situations like that where it's like, oh man, we sitting there talking about splits. Next thing you know, we got an attorney. It's like, whoa, bro. It's like you didn't have to pull out the guns. But then,
Yep.
you know, it's really, it's about posture. I saw somebody said in the chat. It's about knowing how to navigate these relationships, to continue to work, to advocate for yourself, but then at the same time not get screwed over. And if you know it's a big brand and money's going to be involved that you think it's a bit above your head, it is okay to have somebody advocate on your behalf. You just
Right.
have to read the room properly to know, okay, this is the time for my attorney to be involved. And maybe leading in, like Tommy, you do a very great job of that, of saying, hey, I have a manager. And so, you know, going into the business that, okay, I'll be dealing with management as it relates to Tommy's part of the record that we collaborated on. So it's not a surprise and it's fair. So
Yeah.
that's how I look at it.
Yeah. I don't know what to add without me beating a dead horse, honestly. Like y'all, you dropped the mic on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So even like moving forward from this conversation, I want to get into the types of publishing deals, right? Each of you have had different types of publishing deals.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a good time to kind of go into your experience with one specific type each. So we could start with like a traditional one, non-exclusive, admin. What are your takes on these?
Non-exclusive. I've never done a non-exclusive deal other than like one-off sync licensing agreements, but that's not a publishing deal. I've had two publishing deals. My first deal was when I was 15. And then I met Darkchild right after that, and he wanted to sign me, and so I ended up doing that deal. It was a co-publishing deal, exclusive, and I got $15,000 as an advance, and that's me with like one placement. I had done like a hook for Twista when I was 16. And so got the 15K advance, and I had to spend $11,000 of that to get out of my previous deal. So I was left with 4K to like move to LA and go to college. I went to USC. That lasted like a month and a half. And so that was, I mean, I haven't looked at that contract in however long, but it was, yeah, it was 50-50 co-publishing. And then, yeah, there's exclusive publishing deals where it's like you're the songwriter, you're assigning your rights to a publisher for a certain amount of time. The publisher is collecting all your royalties, and they're typically taking like 50% of that publishing income. And then there is, an admin deal. A lot of songwriters, especially like at our caliber, will favor an admin deal because, you know, the administrator is only taking like 10 to maybe 20% off top. So if I were to ever do a publishing deal again, it would absolutely be an admin deal. I love Cobalt. Like I had my co-pub deal was through Cobalt via Darkchild. Love their team, love Cobalt. So yeah, that, I mean, there's different things you can do, but I definitely have a lawyer, period, point blank. Never sign anything like that without a lawyer because you will definitely regret it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone want
I don't want to, y'all are like, I don't want to talk about my deals. I don't want to talk about my deals.
It got real quiet.
No. Well,
I mean, I've had one traditional publishing deal, which I'm still in.
Mhm.
I would say that a publishing deal is similar. I don't know if anybody's seen that movie, Real Steel. It's a movie a while ago, but basically it's where there's a man standing and there's a he's moving his hands and the big machine fights, right? And that's what I call a publisher, right? A good publisher is, you know, they're mirroring your moves at a bigger stage and putting you in position to be successful, right? Now, not every publisher does that. And the truth is, I've been in my publishing situation long enough for my company to get sold, or not sold, yes, to get acquired,
Yeah.
and go through several executives, the CEOs leaving and playing Game of Thrones at a level that's above my pay grade. But that definitely affected my career. And what I've learned the best about these publishing deals is to network with executives both in the label side, right? And then your peers, because your peers will always be around. Those executives, they may move around, but they'll be at different companies if they're good. And the ones who are good will put you in position. If you're able to add value, then they're gonna look good by bringing you into a room. So there's lots of good, bad, and in between on publishing deals. But I would say if you know how to maneuver and use your publishing deals correctly, they're mirroring your moves and supporting your moves. You're not necessarily waiting for them to make moves for you. And I was able to get a publishing deal at a time, I think right at the right time where I had a hit record. And I had a little bit of leverage. I wouldn't suggest just pursuing a deal. I would say pursue getting the best records you possibly can, so that when you have leverage, right?
Yeah. Oh, leverage, leverage, leverage. Can I add one thing? Because you made me think about this. When I signed my deal, I mean, my leverage was tiny. That's why I was 15K. And I was also 17 when I signed that. But another thing is that my deal was exclusive, and I was also a part of a camp. So I'm talking about the Dark Child camp. Love what I was able to experience, and this is no shade. But my lawyer at the time told me, do not sign all three of these contracts. It was a co-publishing deal, it was an artist record deal, and a management deal, all separate entities within the same camp, right? Long story short, I was in my publishing deal the longest out of all of them. When I said I wanted to leave, they dropped me as an artist. They dropped me as the management, but they kept me in publishing because that's obviously where the real money is at. And I was doing a lot of songwriting. The reason that I wanted to leave is because of the exclusivity, and they were not pushing me to anyone outside of the camp to go do sessions at other labels, da 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 da. It was like, no, you stay in this studio, you work with the artists we bring here. Meanwhile, it's like big ass artists like a Katy Perry walking through, a Lady Gaga, which is amazing. But I was not able to kind of go out and work with whoever I wanted, which sucked, because when they found out I was doing that, it was like, exile Michaela, but keep her in a publishing deal for 7 years until it runs out, because I was a minor when I signed it. So after 7 years in California, it's technically void. So I was locked into that for 5 years, me not even talking to them, by the way. So 5 years still locked in the deal. Just putting that out there.
Yeah, me too. So
Yeah.
I signed a bad deal, same company. I think me and Tommy Brown got signed together. I think we got 11,000 each, and this was a 360 deal.
Oh, they paid me more. Sorry.
Yeah, they did. You guys, we had a 360 deal, and I was in that contract for 13 years because I signed my contract in New Jersey. And in Jersey, if you don't complete the contract, it keeps on going. They put my MDRC to 400% a year that renews itself every year. So there was no way for me to get out of this contract. So I had to actually get out the contract, and thank God he did. As soon as I got out the contract, I got a new deal with a better experience, better publishing company with more, how can I say this? They matched my vision because, financially I wanted to be in a certain bracket. So we had the same vision there. And I have great managers, but in my pub deal currently, they're not really presenting me with anything. It's me. It's like I have to keep it going. I'm my own business. I got to keep this engine going because I can't expect anything from them, because they're just like, I paid you, now you work. We want to see you work. We want our money back, but we really don't want to do anything.
Awesome. I feel like the good two takeaways from what you guys have said is, number one, know your state laws, because they vary, right? New Jersey versus California right now. And number two, you can only go as far as you want, right? Even if you have a big machine working behind you, if you're not understanding the business, if you're not understanding where you want to be, if you're not understanding what your value is, I want to say that's number one, then you can only go so far. And I want to say, like, it's not easy to learn the educational aspect of the music industry, right? We're reading books, webinars, YouTube, all that stuff. At the end of the day, there's always something new coming out, but it's always best to stay up to date. Just the same way that we stay up to date with plugins, just the same way we stay up to date with what's the new instrument, what's the new venue out there. We kind of have to do the same thing on the business end, because we can't move further if we don't have something to be able to, I want to say, fund the dream, right? So
Yeah.
it comes hand in hand. This is your career. Treat it as is, treat it as if you would go to another job with a resume, this and that, and so forth. That being said, I know that you touched on this very briefly, Micaela, where you said that, yes, you work with the artists that they have you work with. What does creative control look like when you have something traditional versus an admin?
Ooh, that's a good question. What does it look like traditionally? Well, again, my situation was a little bit unique because, again, I was signed exclusively to a publisher that also was my management and also my record label. So, again, I was able to work with anyone that came through to the studio. The great thing about an admin deal is, well, an admin deal, they don't necessarily need to be pitching you to to go to different sessions, which is why I would say it's cool if you do find a publisher that wants to sign you exclusively or to a co-pub deal that, like First said, is mirroring your efforts and expectations. It's rare, but it's possible. Like, that's the ideal setup. Creative control wise, with an admin deal, I mean, they don't have any creative control of anything. With a publisher, like an exclusive publishing deal, they're not going to have creative control of what you're creating, but unfortunately, they can stop a lot of things too. Like, if you have a certain sync opportunity that comes up, they might say, hey, they're not offering enough money. Like, we're shutting this down. And you're like, shit, I could have used that little 5-10K. But they're like, nah, this should have been 20 or 40 or whatever, right? So there's like pros and cons to everything. I'm not trying to go on too much of a tangent, but I did want to say, do not do any deals just for money. I know it's very tempting, but like Tommy and I's experience, and First as well, like, you will be locked into contracts for years and years and years. That little, 50K, 100, 250, whatever you're getting will disappear immediately, like within a year. And so then you're signed another 5, 10. It's like, and you still got to recoup that. So just really quick, even though my publishing advance when I was 17 was only 15K, it took me like 3 years to recoup that. And so I wasn't even getting most of my royalties until like after the 3 or 4 year mark, and it still wasn't amazing. And my MDRC, which is minimum delivery something, I forget what the MDRC stands for. What does the MDRC stand for? Like the actual acronym? Minimum delivery something commitment. What's the R stand for? Release, right? Yeah, minimum delivery release commitment.
Yeah.
Mine was 600%.
Huh.
Was 400. So what's crazy is what that means is I had an MDRC of 600% in my publishing deal. So I would have had to write 6 songs at 100% to just get into my next term. And I had 3 terms. Okay.
Yep.
So all that to say, all my percentages were only 5% here, 20% here. I didn't even get halfway through my first term within my deal, So I know I went on a tangent with that, but it's just like something so important that you don't sign anything based on money. I know it's tempting, but please don't. Please, I'm begging you.
Good questions in the chat. And I saw, first off, what's up, Nino? And then 2, I saw somebody talk about lawyers and how does a lawyer get paid on an admin deal for billable hours and how to spot red flags. And like, I believe lawyers who help you negotiate a deal should get one-time fee. I do not, that's my personal belief. This is, if you have an attorney, they should take a fee out of the money that you get for the deal, right? Yeah. And so that you're not continually paying, because then you get into these situations where you're the cash cow of somebody. You're paying them for a service, depending on the service. But I thought that was a really good and astute question to ask. I don't know if you are an attorney, but if you are an attorney, I feel like it's ethical to get a fee once there's money for you to get a fee. But to accrue billable hours for an artist that isn't making any money, I think is unethical.
I've done 5% retainers with everyone, but I like that better. Just the one-off, like, hey, we're doing this deal together. You get me 100K. Here's your, 5, 10, whatever for doing that. That's a great way to do it. I love
Yeah.
that.
Awesome. And then speaking of kind of like lawyers and rights and stuff, what are some of the common mistakes that you guys see that um artists that you've been around make when handling their publishing rights? So for example, not registering their songs, not understanding splits, and how could they avoid something like this?
I've seen major artists not know anything about their deals or situations. I have an artist I was working with a few years ago, like a pretty major artist that definitely everyone knows. They got dropped and they didn't know like their SoundCloud login. They didn't know who their publisher was, like all this shit. The biggest mistakes I see with independent artists and songwriters is number one, which we already talked about, is not knowing the difference between publishing and master.
Yeah.
Most people just think I upload my song to DistroKid and that's all my royalties. It's like, you're missing a whole like 75% because even just on the master recording revenue side, you should be registering your songs with Sound Exchange also, which collects other digital royalties, right? And then publishing is a whole other thing. My publishing admin is of course Songtrust because they're automatically registering your shit with the MLC and through your PRO, doing everything on your behalf. I don't have to think about registering shit with the MLC. Another common mistake I see is people not knowing the difference between the MLC and Sound Exchange, which are two completely different organizations collecting two completely different types of royalties. Again, Sound Exchange is on the recording revenue side for artists. And then mechanicals like the MLC is collecting on the composition side. But again, Songtrust does all of the publishing shit already. So like why do everything separately on the publishing side? So yeah, those are the mistakes that I see, not knowing the difference. And double registering too, like registering with my PRO and Songtrust doesn't make sense. That'll
Mhm.
fuck shit up. Sorry, hopefully everyone's an adult here. I'm acting like a sailor. But yeah.
I would say for the people who have done this before, if there's some situation where you need to register on your PRO first, I would say just wait till you have your ISWC. So when you add it to Songtrust, you're not duplicating your registration. So that tends to happen a lot. And thanks for mentioning that because you'll have somebody register day two of the song on BMI and on Songtrust. And again, it can cause conflicts. So we want to make sure that you get paid at the right time and you're doing it the right way. So it does start with the registration process and so on and so forth. So that's thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, I see it all the time.
What about you guys? Are there any situations that you guys have seen?
Like legalities wise, what was the original question?
It was about handling your publishing rights. So any mistakes that you kind of see out there?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a pretty complicated question, Marvin. I would say this, like because I mostly work in TV shows now.
Mm.
It's a very interesting thing on the publishing side, especially when you're trying to clear a sync, and something that's existed before in the world rather than something that's been made specifically for the show. There's a lot of publishing mistakes. I've been close to major networks who've made mistakes. And then you have artists who don't know that how their publishing situation is, so there can be a lot of confusion for music supervisors.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's a very general question. But I've seen problems everywhere. I think the one thing to know is that this system has been the system for a while. There's been changes within the system. I know somebody correctly asked, are publishers getting away with from MDRCs, and that has been the case from what I've been seeing because it became clear and obvious that it was an antiquated system that was unfair for the creatives. But as it stands, publishing is the way it is. And there's so many ways that things can get confusing. If you're an indie who owns your publishing, ironically, you're in the strongest position. You know what I mean? You may not have the fattest wallet, but you're in the strongest position because then you're in a position to negotiate for
Right.
yourself. And I would say the best course of action is to continue to accrue and build leverage till somebody has to give you the right amount of money for that right to negotiate on your behalf. And I'll say that again. Get enough leverage till somebody is willing to pay for the right to negotiate on your behalf, because that publishing, that ability to negotiate your publishing is so huge, especially now.
Awesome. Tommy, any thoughts?
Um,
He's like, my management handles that.
That's a great response.
shout out to Matt Geffen and the Rebels, you know, because I mean, I don't know if you guys are like this. Like, I'm like a pure artist. I'm a pure music head. You know, I get very emotional when it comes to business and all that stuff. It's just, it's hard for me to talk and not assume that everyone's out to get me or whatsoever. So, you know, in my case, I'm just really blessed to have good management to come in and to handle this stuff and then teach me as we're going along. But I was just, you know, like me and Michaela used to just live at the studio. We'll just be dumb in the studio working, and then everything outside is just what's going on outside. My focus was always music, still is.
I love this spectrum though, because you're on that whole artist side. I feel like I'm kind of in between. We're all
Yeah.
equally creative, but then first I feel like it's like hell
Yeah,
business. Like this is
he
a really
understands.
good spectrum. And Tommy, I have pictures of you asleep in Dark Child Studios, by the way, on the couch, like 5
Because
a.m.
of working hard, not
No,
because
it's from working hard, like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. photos knocked out
No.
the couch.
To that point, I just got tired of getting robbed. You know what I'm saying? I was like, I was like, get your hands out my pockets.
Right.
Like, let me learn so we can have a real conversation about my value, because you bringing me into a room and then you creating whole business structures from the fact that you invited me to a place means I need to eat at that table too. And not every artist or creative understands that how much value that we are adding to other people's situations. People are building their careers off having access to you.
Right.
So it ain't just what you're outputting, it's you. And I think it's important for you to be able to negotiate the amount of leverage that you bring for somebody else.
Right.
Awesome. Yep. I would say that's kind of the best way to go about it. And also play with your strengths, right? Like again, we have First that's very, very, you know, intuitive when it comes to business. We have Mickey that's doing both. And then we also have Tommy that is working just on the creative side, which again, it's okay to ask for help. I would say like we can't put everything on our back and think we can do everything all at once. A lot of people have teams, right? That's the whole point of having a team. And if your strength is the creative side, just know that you still have to set yourself up so that
Right.
somebody could take care of that for you. That being said, we have talked a lot about, well, we have talked about splits and streamings and stuff. There's something that I feel like isn't mentioned a lot and a lot of people do a lot, which is live performances, right? So not a lot of people talk about set lists. So maybe you guys can give us some tips and tricks about how you do that with your PRO, because there are some publishing royalties that you can gain from that, right?
I don't perform live. I mean, I haven't in a really long time. I do know that there's a way, obviously, to register your set list, but you're gonna have to educate me, Marvin, because I've never personally registered a set list. I feel like Tommy, I mean, you are or were in the band with Austin, I'm assuming, and you're an artist too. I'm assuming that you've had,
Never registered.
but personally, you've never registered it, but someone was registering your set list.
I had to. Yeah. I don't even think I received any money from anyone. Shows, to be honest, I don't remember receiving nothing.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
so you're supposed to register it because that's obviously a live public performance and you should be publishing royalties on that, or whoever co-wrote the songs with you. Marvin, educate us.
Yes. I will say there is a disclaimer there, right? There are some venues that are registered with BMI ASCAP and they have their music license and so on and so forth. So if you know this is a venue that is registered, does things, I want to say quote unquote in the right way, all you have to do is go onto your PRO, submit that set list. Sometimes they ask you for more information, sometimes less, depending on the country. So they can even ask you for a flyer. They're going to ask you for the information, location, the songs that you played, so that they can kind of connect the dots here and there. Again, this isn't something that you're going to get paid out like if you were to be at the venue and they pay you in cash, right? This is something that takes some time for them to do their work and for the venue to also send that information. But it's as simple as going to the set list section on your PRO and submitting all the information that they have. So it'll be different based off of what country.
So from a show I did 5 years ago, can I go and put that set?
5 years ago, I'm not 100% sure because even for the regular streaming, you have 2 to 3 years. It was 3 years before. Now they're saying 2. So again, the sooner that you register, the more likely it is that you will get these performance royalties. Talk to whoever's in charge, see what the licensing is there. Because again, you don't want to also register something and be waiting 2 to 3 years and then calling the venue and saying, hey, what's going on with these royalties when they never had that license to start off with. And it's okay to perform at these venues if you get paid and upfront.
A good question. How do you know if the place is registered though?
What I have seen personally is that sometimes they have like a registration sticker. It's kind of weird, right? That they slap
Somebody
on.
drunk pulling up to perform. Look,
No, at the venue. So I've been to a place where let's say they have something going on the radio, and then you kind of look to the side and it says this is like music license with BMI or ASCAP or something like that. But again, this is something that I would say talk to the manager or whoever does the booking, talent buying, because they'll know. You're not gonna look for
yeah.
in the entire venue for that sticker, what have you, that representation sticker.
Can I say something that I think is so interesting that I just found out like 2 years ago? Because we never think about how things were, but like BMI back in the day used to go literally knock on doors of venues and restaurants and bar, literally like knock on doors like, hey, y'all are playing this music. And I have a PDF somewhere of a physical letter from like 19, I don't know, way before all of us, that's like, hey, you've been playing your music in this music in this establishment with our members. It's like typewritten, like a typewriter. So it's pretty amazing how the system has evolved, although it's still very archaic. But again, Songtrust makes it easier. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yes.
Yeah.
That being said, there are a few questions here from some of the folks that registered on your behalf asking about Songtrust specific questions. So you guys can hop into these as well. But I'll go ahead and read them off and answer them. So there's 4 questions here. The first one is, should indie artists register with Songtrust if their streaming numbers are low or wait until they grow? So this is a great question to ask right now because what we're doing now is this thing called monitoring. So if I would say a good threshold would be possibly 5K because our minimum payout is $25, then I would recommend, if you're okay with waiting, registering it on Songtrust and just following up with the monitoring status, working on, promotion, marketing, whatever you can to get those numbers up. Or I would also say if you want to speed up the process, you can go through the PRO. But again, the double registration process, it can get a little funny. So I would just kind of say, once you get to a specific point, then that's when I would say your song is ready to be registered. So not all songs are ready to be registered, just the same way that a lot of people were throwing songs on streaming platforms and they had 0 streams, right? You can't expect to generate money if there's no promotion, no marketing, no kind of strategy to what you're doing. So I would say once you have everything in the works and then you start seeing more than a 5K, I would recommend that's the best time for you to register your songs for Songtrust. Number 2, it says, does the order of registering with Songtrust, Sound Exchange, and distribution matter? I would say distro should come first, only because you are planning to add or we are requesting your ISRC, which is your International Standard Recording Code that you are assigned to by your distributor. So if you don't have that, it's a little bit harder for you to do it on Songtrust. I think you are able to do it on BMI and ASCAP, but again, if you don't have all the information for the song, how is it going to be found, right? Unless you're doing sync and it's not being put on platform specifically, then I would say do distribution first, and then you can go ahead and do Songtrust, Sound Exchange. Those 2 you can play around with. It doesn't necessarily matter which one you do first, but distribution, I would say, would be the best to go on about first. Number 3, it says, how long does it take to see royalties after registering with Songtrust? This is a simple one. The registration process takes 6 to 9 months. And then depending on if there are conflicts or not, I would say maximum it should take 9 to 12 months. After that, that's when you start getting paid, right? Quarterly payments. So that doesn't mean the song is registered, you saw that it says completed, you're going to get paid tomorrow. You get paid quarterly. So whatever you made in that quarter, whatever you had not gotten paid for before, you will get paid in the first, second, possibly the third quarter. And then afterwards, it'll be what is generated afterwards. So some people look at it and they're like, well, I have 200K. You have already collected from BMI, you have already collected from the MLC. So we can't give you the same payment each and every time. Like that's really up to you at that point. And number four, what should producers do when publishing a song through Songtrust? So I feel like this is pretty much the same process, regardless of whether you're a songwriter, producer, musician, so on and so forth. Have your split sheets ready. So whatever take you have on the song, make sure that that's already negotiated, that you have everything confirmed so that you can add that to your Songtrust account. Have your ISRC, make sure that you also talk to whoever else is on that split sheet to let them know, hey, I'm working with Songtrust, or I'm working with this publisher, this record label. This is what will pop up on your registration. So don't be alarmed, because sometimes it's hard to connect the dots. Well, you will go on ASCAP or BMI and see that you have a publisher, but it's not connected to anyone. It's not like they draw a line and say, you know, Micaela is with Songtrust. It'll just say Songtrust has this percentage, Micaela has this much, First has this much, and so on and so forth. So communicate that information to everyone else that you know so that they can also understand how the splits look. It's always best to send over a split sheet so they understand how that looks like. And then also, if they are with Songtrust as well, you can contact our client services team and let us know so that you're not double registering the song as well, because that can cause a conflict if you both are with Songtrust and you both are trying to register the same song at the same time. There's also this thing called we have something on the app where you can also send that information to someone. So if they need to register the song without both of you registering it, you have access, which is the access account. You send over your information so they can add it on. And both of you don't need to register, just one person. So those are some of the cool things that, you know, we're doing at Songtrust. Again, music publishing, collecting royalties on your behalf. It's an admin service. So again, you do have more creative control. It is 10 to 15% of what, you know, the admin is. But again, there are certain things that you can do with a traditional publisher that you might not be able to do with Songtrust. So if it fits, it makes sense, and you have working knowledge of the music industry, this is something that work best with you. That being said, I do want to give the floor back to you guys to kind of say what are some you know, some good takeaways for everyone that's here based off of your experience. What is something, maybe like a good point to recommend some of the artists that are here?
I always say learn the difference between publishing and master. I can't I'll die on that hill. Like, please just know the difference, learn the difference. And then also, since you were just talking about producers, producers are songwriters.
Yeah.
So I think that we tend to separate them for some reason, but I would really brainwash people to understand producers are literally songwriters. A song that is written contains both the melody, the music, the lyrics. So a songwriter,
Is
the
a
lyric
producer.
writer, we should separate it. We should say lyric writer, music writer, which
Right.
all encompasses a songwriter. So I just, any producers in here that feel like they're in some separate category, no, you're a songwriter, just like the person writing the lyrics. So
Right.
yeah, my two things.
I totally agree with that. Well, it's just like what First said. It's just, you know, just be, you got to read, pay attention, read the room, and just really be obsessed with this music industry so you can understand it the best way you can, and then you can maneuver and move around the way that you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, couldn't have said it better myself. Learn what you want so you can get where you want to be, and
Yeah.
build as much leverage as you can so that you don't have to give pieces away of yourself on the
Right.
journey to get into where you want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I I see a lot of questions in the chat too, that I would love to like answer. If anyone wants to email me, I know some folks in here are coming to our camp this weekend too, so we'll talk about it one-on-one. But please, like, feel free to definitely reach out to me personally or help at Hard Drive, which is my company, and we have a great admin that knows a lot of this stuff. And then obviously Songtrust is a huge resource. So yeah, please, please, please reach out. We're so here for this. That's what we're doing here, you know.
Where can they reach out to you? Can you also add that in?
Oh yeah, Mickey at MickeyShiloh.com. So, and I think it's in my Instagram bio too. If you hit message, it should go to that email. It might go to IG at MickeyShiloh.com. So I'm very accessible that way. I need to not be. You know what? 2026, I'm cutting all y'all off.
Stop.
He's giving you a shot now to reach out. So go ahead and
Out now.
also the Tommy and First, do you guys want to drop your socials or anything like that so people can contact you or anything like that?
Yeah, mine is longer than it should be, but it's FB as in Firstborn, the Mastermind. And that's also my email, fbthemastermind@gmail. I put it in the chat so you guys have
You
it.
about to get hella messages. Working on some TV projects, y'all.
I'll put my email in the chat, and I'm Tommy Parker 80s at Instagram, and you guys can hit me up there. And I'm not so fast on my email, but I'm very fast on Instagram.
Awesome. You heard it here first. So
Yeah.
just to give everyone another set of a bit more information, we will have this recording available in the next few weeks. If you guys have any questions, also for Songtrust, reach out to us via our client services team on our website. We do have a lot of resources there. I know Hard Drive has a lot of resources, so tap in with their website as well. And again, we are open to answering any of the questions that you guys have through our client services team. And hopefully everyone was able to grab some great information. Thank you again, Mickey. Thank you First. Thank you, Tommy. You guys were great. Great information, good experience. And I hope, you know, we're able to say all of the things that we have to say so people can learn not being baptized by fire like some of us have.
Damn, how did you drop that at the end? Did you say baptized by fire?
Baptized by fire, yeah.
That
By
is
fire.
awesome. I'm gonna write that down.
Never heard that. Oh my gosh.
That's a good one. That's a good.
Damn,
There's another word.
what do you get though, publishing wise? Do you get publishing for a title?
What do you mean?
That's a dope song.
Because me and Tommy are writing this song later, so baptized.
Right.
You get
I get like a 0.5%.
Okay, we got your point. Okay, perfect.
That's fair publishing right there. That's being
Right. I didn't do that much. I just gave an idea.
Okay, thank you guys so much.
Awesome.
Oh my gosh, I'll see some of you guys later and email us. Reach out.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you guys.